Are you the master of your finances or a guest in your own bank account? Remember, money is a servant, but a very dangerous master. Learn to manage it, and it will serve you for life. Otherwise, you'll serve it day by day, paycheck by paycheck. And that's not the life for you. Right now, this is the moment to take out a notebook, because we're not just going to talk about financial freedom. We're going to create an action strategy for you at the end of this video. Not theory, a plan, and I want you to be ready. Let's start with the first strategy my mentor once explained to me. Learn to live on 70% of your income. Not 100, and definitely not 110 like most people do. This habit became my starting point. It's simple, yet powerful. At the time, I was earning very little and I thought, I'm barely getting by as it is. How can I possibly save anything? But Earl said, if you can't live on 90% of your income, you won't be able to live on 1000% either. That was a shock, and it was true. Financial management is a matter of self-discipline, not math. And when you start keeping 70% for yourself and dividing the rest between education, investments, and charity, not only does order come into your life, self-respect does too. You no longer spend every dollar as if it's your last. You begin to think like a builder, not a consumer. You lay a foundation, so 70% for living, 10% for investing in yourself, books, courses, knowledge, 10% for capital that works for you, and another 10% for charity, because once you learn to give, you open a channel to receive. This is not just a financial strategy, it's a life philosophy. The second strategy, save and grow. Don't just stash money under a mattress, grow it. Money needs to work. If it's not working, it's not money, it's just paper. And I've always said it doesn't matter how much you save. What matters is how disciplined you are about it. Because discipline is the bridge between goals and results. I remember once I was late on a bill payment. It wasn't a big bill, but it hit me so hard that I told myself, enough. From now on, I manage money, not the other way around. And I started saving not when something was left over, but as soon as I received income. Automatically, systematically. Because you know what's best about automatic saving? It's non-negotiable. You just do it. Like brushing your teeth, no discussion. And the third strategy, study money like your life depends on it, because it does. In school, they didn't teach us what compound interest is. They didn't teach us that a credit card is not money. They didn't teach us that the greatest enemy of financial freedom is not lack of money, it's lack of knowledge. But you can learn at any age. Today, it doesn't matter if you're 50, 60, or 80. What matters is whether you're willing to learn. I started reading everything I could find about money, about investing, about taxes, about insurance, about how wealthy people think. Not to become a financial expert, but to stop being a financial victim. And I recommend the same to you. One new lesson per week. One financial term. One principle. These are simple things, but they change everything. As my mentor used to say, one of the worst conditions is not poverty, it's financial helplessness. That's where the power lies. You can take responsibility for your financial state right now. You can learn, you can change. And when you change, everything around you changes. Your decisions become sharper, your spending wiser, your opportunities greater. Why? Because you no longer react, you lead. Ask yourself this: if every dollar were a worker, would you hire it? Or would you let it slack off, get wasted on trivialities, impulsive buys, mindless entertainment? Or would you give it a task, a purpose, a plan? You see, money is like an army. It's either disciplined or it rebels. And you are the commander-in-chief. So the first 3 steps are simple, but defining. Live on less than you earn, save and grow, and learn something new about finance every week. That's the path. That's the beginning of freedom. And one more thing, start today. Not on Monday, not after the next pension recalculation. Today. Grab a pen and write this down. What is your monthly income? How much is 70%? How much is 10%? And then, take action. Because without action, there is no result. As I love to say, it's better to start small than not to start at all. The fourth strategy, and this one is a game changer, is to plan your money before it leaves you. I remember the moment I finally learned how to create a monthly financial plan, and it wasn't some complicated 10-page budget. It was a simple list: income, expenses, remainder, and most importantly, a purpose. Where will every dollar go? Because if you don't tell it where to go, it'll find its own way to disappear. Financial freedom doesn't begin with a big inheritance or a lottery win. It begins with a notebook, a pen, and a habit. Before a new month began, I would sit down and write, here's what's coming in, here's where it's going, and here's what I'm investing. It was my way of telling money, I'm in charge now. You may ask, what if the income is unstable? The answer is simple: plan even for the unstable. Because as I always said, a bad plan is better than no plan. An unstable income isn't an excuse. It's a call for even greater responsibility. Make a minimal projection. Determine a survival baseline and work with it. And when more comes in, don't spend it right away. Make the surplus work for you. Everything that goes unplanned sinks into emotions. Think about it. How many times have you made a spontaneous purchase and regretted it later? That's not a financial decision. That's an emotional reaction. But the moment you start planning, you start acting based on goals, not impulses. That is financial maturity. The fifth strategy, and one of my favorites, is to create assets, not just save money, because money by itself doesn't give freedom. It must be turned into something that works without you. My whole life I've said, don't work just for money, make money work for you. And here's the big trap. Many think, well, I'm not an investor. I don't have enough to buy or invest in anything. But an asset isn't always about stocks or real estate. An asset is anything that brings you income or value over time. Skills can be an asset, a small business, an asset, even a well-written book that's read for years is an asset. I started with buying books and turning them into knowledge, knowledge into ideas, and ideas into products. Then I learned to invest in teaching others. Teaching created workshops, workshops created income, income became capital, and again into assets. That's the cycle of power. You can start simple, one step, and you're in the game. Think, what skill do you already have that can be turned into income? What do you know? What do you own? Who needs your experience? How can you create an additional stream? See, at an older age you have one advantage: experience. And if you structure it, it becomes an asset. Now, one of my favorite quotes: rich people look for opportunities, poor people look for excuses. And I know that may sound harsh, but it's the truth. While someone says, I'm too old to start a new business, another opens an online store from home. While one puts $50 in an envelope, another invested in a book that changes their mindset and earns thousands. The difference isn't in age, the difference is in mindset. And one more thing, don't be afraid to lose. Many people fear investing because there's risk, but remember, the biggest risk is doing nothing. Inflation eats your savings, life gets more expensive, and if you're not growing, you're actually losing. So smart risk is not a problem, it's a required part of growth. So, what do we have so far? We're not just saving anymore. We're planning. We're not just cutting expenses, we're creating assets. We're not waiting for miracles, we're building our financial foundation. And that's the path to true stability. Look at your situation. Think, what among what you already have could become an asset? Maybe you have a spare room, it could generate income. Maybe you have time, and you could teach others what you know. Don't limit yourself to traditional paths. Wealth is creativity, it's strategy, and it's the constant question, how can I turn time and knowledge into income? Remember, it's not about how much you have right now. It's about what you do with it. The sixth strategy, and it transforms not just your money but your relationship with yourself, is keeping personal financial records. Let me tell you plainly, if you don't track your finances, you're not in control of your life. Period. There was a time I lived by feel. It seemed like I still had money, as long as I could buy a coffee. But that's not a financial decision. It's a blind reaction. My mentor asked me, Jim, how much did you spend on food last month? I said, I don't know, but I don't think it was much. He smiled and said, show me the numbers. And that's when I realized, I think means I don't know. And I don't know means I'm not in control. Since then, I started writing everything down, first in a notebook, then on cards, later in a simple spreadsheet, and something changed, not in the money, in me. I started seeing where my unnoticed expenses were going. I saw how much I actually earned, how much I spent on things that didn't matter, and most importantly, I felt in control again. And from control comes peace. Tracking is your financial consciousness. It's a mirror you may not always enjoy looking into, but in it lies the truth. And that truth makes you stronger. So my advice to you is, grab a notebook or open a file and start today. Write down how much money came in this month, how much went out, where, what's left, and most importantly, what does that tell you about your habits? Because money doesn't lie, it clearly shows what you truly value. You might say personal growth is important, but if your record shows $0 spent on books and $300 on cafes, the reality is different. That's why tracking isn't just about controlling expenses. It's about being conscious of your life. But let's move on. The final 7th strategy, the deepest one, is to think in terms of legacy. Instead of asking how much will I earn, ask yourself a different question. What will I leave behind? Financial well-being isn't just about a comfortable retirement. It's about the mark you leave. What kind of money culture are you passing on to your children? What spending philosophy do your grandchildren see in you? What saving, investing, and responsibility habits will they inherit, or not? I know many people think, I don't have much to leave behind. But you don't have to leave just a bank account. You can leave a system, an example, a principle. If your kids know you always lived responsibly, invested in knowledge, avoided debt, and thought strategically, they've already inherited something powerful, and that legacy will last longer than any check. I remember a story. An older man, a farmer, he didn't have a large estate, but he had records, journals, decades worth. He tracked harvests, expenses, profits. And when his children saw this, they saw a system. They saw that their father wasn't just a laborer, but a thinker, a planner, an entrepreneur. And that legacy changed their lives. Think big. Not just, how do I get through this month? But, how do I build a philosophy that will outlive me? As I once said, success isn't what you get, it's who you become. And when you become a financially responsible person, you become an example. And that's worth more than any amount of money. True wealth isn't just in the bank, it's in the heart, in discipline, in wisdom, in the ability to say, I didn't just spend, I created. I didn't just consume, I built. I didn't just live, I left a path for others to follow. And you know the best part? It doesn't take millions. It takes decisions, small, daily, consistent ones, to calculate, to save, to preserve, to give, to teach. That's the formula. So let's draw the line. We've walked through 7 strategies, from expense control to planning, from investing in yourself to building assets, from habits to legacy. And now I want you to take one more step, apply them, because knowledge without action is just intellect, but knowledge with action is power. And now, it's time for action.